They have the best and the brightest lawyers, the biggest and most prestigious law firms in the country. And then you had a couple of Christian lawyers that were trying to, combat this. It literally was a David and Goliath.
A month later, televangelist Pat Robertson asked Sekulow to take the helm of a new legal organization, the American Center for Law and Justice. Sekulow brought a new strategy to the battle, to give up arguing cases on the Establishment Clause and look for ammunition elsewhere in the First Amendment.
Rather than turn to the Establishment Clause, what they've done is to pin their arguments on the Free Speech Clause, saying that if the government is not letting religious individuals say what everybody else is saying, doesn't that violate the very idea of freedom of speech?
I came in and said, you know what, the student wants to have a prayer group with other students in their school after school hours. That's a free speech right. If they want to have a national day of prayer for students, they have a free speech right to do that.
Sekulow's strategy was, in effect, to beat the ACLU and its allies at their own game.
It put the other side into a tizzy because all of a sudden you had groups like American Civil Liberties Union, founders of protecting free speech, having to argue for censorship, which put them in a very uncomfortable position, and the most liberal members of the court were going with me on it.
The strategy was adopted by a handful of other groups, such as the Becket Fund for Religious Liberty, the Alliance Defense Fund, and the Liberty Council.
We don't seek a unique access, but only equal access.
And they soon racked up a string of victories. In 1993, Lamb's Chapel was allowed to show a religious film series in a New York school. In 1995, a Christian group at the University of Virginia was allowed to publish a Christian newspaper using school funds. And in 2001, a Good News Club in New York State was allowed to hold after-school meetings at a public elementary school.
To get the playing field leveled, you had to win in court. You could talk a good talk and you could walk a good walk, but when the decision comes out in the Supreme Court Reporter, you win or you lose. And we had to get some wins under our belt, and we did that. And I think that changed the dynamic completely.
Meanwhile, a growing movement has set its sights on an even larger target, bringing more religious people and religious voices into the political system.
One nation, under God.
For some, it is reason for concern.
I am worried that the current debate is embracing a concept of a Christian country that means a particular Christian viewpoint, and that does not take into account at all the thousands of religions in the United States.
Others disagree.
Majority rules in America. And if the people of faith are a majority in America, their voice should be heard.
We've got a whole lot of understanding about what God is calling for.
Bishop Harry Jackson, as pastor of the Hope Christian Church in Bowie, Maryland, and founder of the High Impact Leadership Coalition, an organization of African American pastors around the country.
Black Christians especially, 70% of churchgoers, expect their clergy members to be involved in politics. The new black church, I want to call it, is a morally sensitive black church, and you're beginning to see opinion leaders side with the broader evangelical community.
Jackson is a registered Democrat and says that church and state issues cut across both racial and political lines. In fact, polls show that 89% of Republicans believe the courts have gone too far in taking religion out of public life, but so do 73% of Democrats.
Please welcome Bishop Harry Jackson.
And polls suggest that at least as many black Americans as white Americans hold similar views.
Together on our watch, we're going to change America and see it return to its righteous foundations.
Bishop Jackson was part of a group that assembled over the spring and summer for Justice Sunday 1 and 2. The aim, to help win the holy grail of the evangelical movement, sympathetic court appointees. And as not one but two vacancies opened on the Supreme Court, it appeared their wish might just be granted.
Let me put it this way. You have a court right now that the balance is razor thin. It's 5-4 on a lot of these critical cases. So does a one-vote shift make a difference? Tips the balance one way or another. So this is a situation where it's kind of, winner take all, loser take nothing.
Coming up, will new faces on the court make a difference? Welcome back for the conclusion of our special Religion in America, Church and State. We've seen how the Supreme Court has been central to the battles of the past 60 years over the role of religion in public life. But now the court may be on the verge of a major change, a change that could last for decades more.
The liberals argue for a strict wall of separation between church and state. The conservative justices say, no, the founders' real aim was religious liberty. And right now we're at a 4-4 split. And so the next justice will really be able to decide matters.
Let me tell you something. At the end of the day, when you've got a religion case at the Supreme Court of the United States, people ask me, what's the rule? The rule is count to 5. You got to have 5 votes.
When Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor announced her retirement and Chief Justice William Rehnquist died this summer, suddenly there were 2 vacancies on the court and a chance for President Bush to make history.
I want to reiterate...
Jay Sekulow was tapped to consult on the nominations.
The president's very specific. He knows what issues we're gearing the American people up. And it was the Pledge of Allegiance and being able to have a nativity scene in the courthouse square without a constitutional crisis.
The American people have learned about the career and character of Judge Roberts. They like what they see.
The first step was the appointment of John Roberts, 50, a brilliant legal mind who would clerk for Chief Justice Rehnquist, who was confirmed in September to fill his mentor's seat. Soft-spoken and devoutly Roman Catholic, Roberts is not seen as someone who would continue marginalizing religion, but that only restored a 4-4 balance on the court.
I'm confident that Harriet Miers will add to the wisdom and character of our judiciary when she is confirmed as the 110th Justice of the Supreme Court.
Bush next picked his personal lawyer, Harriet Miers, to fill the last court seat. She was a born-again Christian, but that was not enough to reassure conservatives who wanted the next nominee to have a proven judicial philosophy. Miers withdrew.
Judge, thanks for agreeing to serve.
And the president named Samuel Alito, an appeals court judge from New Jersey with a 15-year track record.
My knowledge of Judge Alito goes back to when Sam and I were college classmates together at Princeton.
Andrew Napolitano is Fox News senior judicial analyst and a former judge on the Superior Court of New Jersey.
I know his thinking very well, and he has traditionally sided with the right of the individual to express a religious opinion on public property.
I mean, look, he's handled every case from the nativity scene display to the student wanting to pray at a graduation ceremony. This is someone that's known in the community, has a known judicial philosophy, and 300 published opinions.
Our concerns about Judge Alito are that he will adopt such a narrow definition of separation of church and state that really, as long as the government doesn't officially establish a national church, it can pretty much do anything else it wants. And I think that that type of a narrow definition of separation of church and state runs contrary to what the founders wanted, their vision for this nation, and we're going to oppose that very strongly.
Like Roberts, Judge Alito is a Roman Catholic. If confirmed, he would be the 5th Catholic on the court. That is a major irony given the anti-Catholic fears that may have motivated Justice Black 60 years ago. Few people in Washington are predicting that Judge Alito's faith will be a major issue in his hearings, but there is little doubt his views on faith, as well as the views of America's founders, will be, as the debate on religion's role in American life begins anew. What is at stake in Alito's nomination fight is not only a judge's worthiness, but a view of religion in America that stretches back more than 200 years. It's a view that sees religion becoming more public, not less, in American life. And it's a view that most Americans, according to Fox News polls, would like to see return. Whether that view will prevail remains to be seen. Regardless, Fox News will be there to tell you what happens next. Until then, Merry Christmas or Happy Hanukkah, and good night.